Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today I'm going to teach you how to spray a sunburst with spray cans. So we are going to be putting a cherry burst, sunburst type effect in transparent lacquers on this Telecaster body. So we're going to use basically two different methods I'm going to show you today to do this. You can do it with a shield or you can do it without. We're going to combine the two, but you can use either or a combination of the two like I am. And I think using both of them on this project is going to give us a pretty good finish. The cans that we're going to use are from Bellin. They are the Guitar Toner Lacquer Aerosol. You've seen me do a burst with these before. I'm using a slightly different color combination this time. So I'm going to do a deep red outside and a Starcast amber for the rest. And because these are transparent, as you layer them up, you get them darker and darker, so you can kind of add until you get what you like. I'm thinking it's going to be one coat of red around the outside, and then I'll show you how to feather that in with the amber and create kind of a glowing orange transition all the way to almost natural in the middle. We're going to create our shield right now. I'm going to show you how to do that, and we will talk about how that works as we do it. Let's get to it. So for creating the shield, we have here a piece of poster board. You need something with a little bit of rigidity to it, which is why this is nice. It doesn't have to be this, it can be cardboard. I wouldn't suggest using paper or newspaper or anything like that. It won't have the strength that you need. So here's what we do. We place our guitar body on here and we trace the outside of it onto this thing. Make sure you're holding it relatively steady so that it doesn't move a whole bunch. This guitar has a belly carve under here, so for that section, you kind of just have to try and hold the pencil relatively upright. Maybe make a couple lines and then pick the one that you think suits the guitar shape the best. And make sure you get all the way around. So if I look straight down here, my outside most line is going to be the closest to what I actually need, and the rest of the guitar was a pretty straightforward trace job. So I've got the outline of my guitar here. If I wanted a very thin burst, I could almost use this, but I want something with a little more substance to it. So what I do now is I just kind of trace the outline of where I want my burst to go. I obviously don't need it to go into this neck pocket, so I'm going to give, a couple inches here all the way around. Another thing to consider though, and something you need to keep in mind when you're doing this, is that we're going to raise this thing off the guitar. If you put it right down on the guitar, what happens is you end up with a hard line, and that's not going to look good at all. That's not going to look like a burst. You do not want to have a hard paint line. The higher off the guitar you raise it, the softer that edge is going to be when you spray, depending on what angle you hold your can at. But what this means is where we cut it, because I'm doing this so that I can now cut it out, is not where it's going to end. So if I cut along this line, my paint is going to feather out under that line a little bit and take up more space than just the area that I've cut out. So keep that in mind. Don't make this too far in. Don't mask off only a small area expecting that your burst will cover exclusively what you've left unmasked. It is going to fade underneath that and cover more of the guitar. Once you've got your burst drawn out, the next step is to cut it out. I have a razor blade here. I recommend that you use a brand new or sharp, very sharp blade. It makes it a lot easier. It's a lot more important to use a brand new blade every time you cut when you're cutting directly on your instrument, so that you don't have to push as hard. This is more so for tape that this statement applies, because that way you don't have to push as hard and you're less likely to gouge into your instrument. I know that may seem counterintuitive, that a sharp blade is less likely to cut into your instrument, but that is just how it works. In this case, I can push relatively hard and make sure I'm cutting all the way through this, because I don't have a guitar underneath. I just have a piece of chloroplast, and I don't really care if I cut into that. So how this works is the template's going to end up on the guitar like this. Now, like I said, we can't just leave the template on the guitar that way, because you'll end up with a hard line around the template, and that would look just terrible. So what we end up needing to do is raise this off the guitar so that as we spray, the paint can go underneath and create that faded line. Now, again, you can do this all freehand if you want. I'm not going to, because I need to demonstrate this technique, but it's really not that difficult to just follow the line of the guitar if you're good with the spray can. Now here we go. The way that we're gonna raise this thing up off the guitar is by using screws, all right? So you're gonna need, 3 or 4 screws in this case. And the longer the screw is, the higher this thing raises, obviously. The higher it is, the more gradual that fade is gonna be. So if you want a nice gradual fade, you're gonna raise this guy really far off of the guitar. If you don't need such a gradual fade, if you're thinking, hey, I want a fairly tight line, then you don't have to raise it as far. Likewise, the distance that you hold your can from it and the angle that you spray at is going to have some effect as well. So the angle and distance is a more important factor when you're doing this whole thing freehand, but it still applies when you're using a template, just not to the same degree. All right, so 3 screws should be sufficient to hold this guy off of here. Looking down, looks like it's gonna give us a nice wide burst, which is gonna be good. So step 1 is gonna be to come in with my outside color, and that is my deep red. All right, so it's time to go and spray now. I'm gonna throw on a mask because this is lacquer and it's lacquer, so it's bad for you. Let's keep in mind, because I didn't mention this earlier, that this isn't just bare wood. I have sealed this with 3 coats of Bellin's vinyl sealer so that it is ready to accept paint. It's not all gonna soak in. It's not gonna go on really dry. There's actually something on there already. So this wood has been pre-treated and is ready for finish. It's not 100% sealed up. It's just had 2 or 3 coats for the purposes of this demonstration. So if you are gonna be doing this, make sure you seal the wood first, unless you're expecting to have one of those finishes where the paint kind of soaks in which case, well, obviously don't. All right, guys, so that about covers it. That gives us our 2 techniques. We started out with our masked version. Then when I went to my freehand version, you will have seen me coat back over the stuff that I did with the masked version. That is because that amber is a transparent color, just like the red is, pardon me. And every time you add another layer of those transparent colors, much like candies, what happens is it darkens the finish before it. So even though it's a lighter color, it's an amber instead of a red, it does serve to darken the red a little bit further, which means that I had to go back over the red so that I wouldn't end up with a darker line around where the 2 overlapped and then a lighter edge where the red was by itself. So here's what we're left with after all of that. These dry very quickly. It's been about 12 minutes since I sprayed the amber. So here's what we're left with. We don't have a clear coat on here yet, and I did put it on pretty light, particularly in the middle. So it doesn't have a shine to it at this point, but that is our burst. I put it on relatively heavy on the outside. So, I mean, you can have a more drastic burst effect if you leave the middle pretty much natural and then, you know, fade from there. So as always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please, if you did like it, give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be doing something else to this guitar along with many others in the near future. If you have any questions, post them in the comment section below and I will do my best to get to them. This company, Bellin, also makes a brown transparent lacquer that does a really nice burst effect as well. You can do a 3-tone, lots of options there, tobacco burst, pretty much whatever you want. Also, if you're gonna be doing this, don't forget to clear coat over it. I know that lacquer and lacquer clear coat, lacquer colors, they're all basically the same thing, but it's good to seal this in and protect it with a clear, even though it's the same substance, and that gives you some room to work with when you want to sand back and polish. So you're probably gonna put about 8 coats of Bellin's stringed instrument lacquer rather, on top of this generally if you're doing the whole job with spray cans, and that will give you a nice, you know, a nice coating that you can sand into, sand smooth up to like 3000 grit and then polish back. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cue the outro.